Welcome to an enlightened hour of interactive talk. This is Guided Spirit Conversations with host Marla Goldberg. In this program, we spotlight guests from all over the globe who have helped others change their lives and will provide you with the tips, tools, and techniques that you need to help you make a difference in your own life. Now, here is Marla Goldberg.
Welcome. I hope you're having an amazing Thursday. I hope you had a fantastic week. I'm here with the amazing Karen A. Dahlman. Karen is an author, licensed psychotherapist, a channel for source wisdom, and I call her a Ouijaologist, but she's a Ouija expert. And so on top of being a practitioner of the Ouija board, she serves as a director and officer at Talking Board Historical Society. Karen teaches and speaks at conferences internationally and appears on Gaia's show Beyond Belief several times and is a frequent guest on popular radio or internet shows such as Coast to Coast, Fade to Black, and the UK's Unexplained. Within her presentations and her books, Karen helps others to discover and unlock their greatest selves, including their extrasensory perceptions, and engage within the world. Welcome, Karen. How are you?
Great. Hi, Marla. Great to be here with you guys. Hello, everybody in the audience watching. It's going to be a great show today. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm so excited. Thank you. So I always love to start at the beginning. And the beginning for me is your talents, abilities, gifts, whatever everybody calls them, something else. Did they start as a child? Is it something you're a late bloomer, though, like me? Where did you come in with knowing that you had the ability to know things?
Yeah, it actually happened at a really young age. I would say about the age of 2 to 5 is when I had an imaginary playmate, but he was not imaginary. Everybody told me he was. And I know why, because it came back later in my life. But I came into this world just seeing things, hearing things, feeling things that other people said they couldn't see, such as auras. I also would know when the phone was going to ring, who might be on the phone. And then, of course, I had my friend that nobody else could see that I would talk to and play with all the time. So I just got to the point where I decided not to talk about it too much more around the age of 5 or 6, because I realized nobody believed me and they thought I was just pretending and making things up. But the reality was I started to doubt myself. That's what happened. I started to doubt myself. And I wanted to go to school with the big kids. And in order to do that, I probably needed to not talk about my friend. His name is Dacky, my imaginary friend, but he was not imaginary again. But anyway, so I tried to put him away when I went to school. And little did I know a few years later that whole magical, mystical world that he had opened me to, such as seeing the auras and feeling people's feelings and knowing what people were thinking and et cetera, and having these wonderful conversations with him, that as a child, it's like, I just remember saying, things like, well, who are these people that say they're my parents? Just weird questions like that, not knowing why I was asking this, and realizing, as I got older and I started exploring these things, that really it was about, I was more aware of where I came from, the spirit realm, as opposed to being here in a human body. But all that started, expanding for me. But it was at the age of 8 when I discovered the Ouija board. And that's when my hope and measure of clarity came back to me for what the other realms were about.
Let's talk about the Ouija board, because I am so curious about it. I know for a fact that I've cleared so many spaces where somebody had played with the Ouija board and have popped open a portal, where people get really dark information. They don't get the clear, concise information. So when you were 8 and you did that, do you know where the information came from?
Yeah. Okay. So at the time, no, I always thought I was talking to dead, deceased people. I prefer to call them transition people. And that's where it started for me. But this is the thing. I was doing the Ouija board in a vacuum, basically. Of course, no social media. I had nobody telling me this is bad or negative, or you could bring in bad things. All I thought was that you could only bring in positive things. So my intentions were there from the get-go. My intentions were, I wanted to connect with those who had transitioned, whether it was a grandfather or somebody that I knew in my life, or others. I was just curious and wanted to know about what happens, when you leave this world, and where were you before you came into this world? I was really searching for these answers at such a young age. And this is what happened, Marla. So I had 2 girlfriends who lived down the street from me. One was my best friend, one was her sister. And they had invited me to their house and said, we're going to play a game. And we would always go to each other's houses and play, different kinds of games, like Monopoly or Tiddlywinks or barrel of monkeys, So they pull out this Ouija board, very much looking like this one. This, by the way, this is the one I got from Santa Claus. I'll tell you about that in a second. So it looked like this one. They pulled it out from underneath the bed, and we put the planchette on there, the little indicator that moves around. And they started moving it around. I thought, oh, this is a dumb game. Are you kidding me? What do? You push that thing around and you act like somebody's here pushing it? They said, no, it really works, Karen. I want you to try it. And I was like, okay, whatever. I said, swear you will not push it if I put my hands on this planchette. It started moving. I know I wasn't pushing it, so maybe they were pushing it. But then they said, we're going to show you something. We're going to let you speak to somebody we talked to. And I was like, who do you talk to? And they said, watch. So they both took back over control of the planchette. And then they start having this conversation. It was like, how are you today? I'm doing fine. Just back and forth little things. It was spelling it out. And they were, we were writing it down, reading it out. I said, who is this? And they said, well, that's our dead sister. I said, you have a dead sister? Turns out, which I did not know, the girl who was 10, 2 years older than my other friend, her older sister had a twin who died shortly after birth. Oh. And this twin was now on the other side, if you want to call it that, growing up. She was now 10 years old, not a baby when she passed. It was cool. We were talking to somebody who was deceased, transitioned, but more importantly to me was that this being was having its own life and growing up, to feel, to understand and know that this child who died at the age of, a few months, there it was growing up and 10 years old and having conversations with us. So I went home and I said, oh my gosh, it's true. You can really communicate with the deceased. I said, you can also grow up on the other side when you have your own life. My parents were like, yeah, right, whatever. I said, no, the Ouija board, it works. And I said, I've got to get a Ouija board. And there's like, sure. I said, if you won't give me one, Santa Claus will. And so sure enough, December 25th, 1973, this is what Santa gave me, this board right here. And I still have it to this day. Yeah. Special board. I have a lot of boards in my collection, you guys, because I do collect boards too, but this is my first board I ever had.
That is so cool. So do souls age on the other side? Like this infant obviously did, but do other souls age? Because I heard like old people who transition might come back at their best age, whatever their happiest age was.
You can do that. So one of the things that I did over the years, and again, I've been using the board now for 47 years when I started in 73, was one of the things I started doing immediately was exploring what the afterlife was like. This is like when I was really young, and then I've done it throughout. So when I have friends who have transitioned even to this day, they come back and communicate with me. Most of them do, because we made that pact before they left this realm. But anyway, what I've learned is that, yes, you typically will come back and show up in the age that you felt the best. However, you can project yourself to any age. So for example, if somebody transitioned, they could project themselves to be the age of 2. They could project to be the age of 35. They felt great then. They could project themselves to the age they never even reached when they were alive, to the age of 99, let's say. Wow. You could project yourself to any age that you thought you would have been in that incarnation.
That's an amazing factoid, because I would not be aware of that. I knew about the younger, with the age that you felt best, but I didn't think that they'd want to get older and project themselves.
It's more like exploration. It's more like just trying out possibilities they never got to try out here. So it's like, okay, let's say a person died at the age of 60. So they're able to try out what would have been like when they were 72 or 75, minus all the pain and all the aches or whatever the body feels. And their body is if they've died like ridden of cancer or any kind of illness, they're immediately, transitioned from that, and their light body is light and free of any kind of condition when it passed to transition back.
Which is amazing. Yeah, I know a couple of people who passed in high school, like around 15, 16. And, you think, there's so much that they didn't experience.
Right.
Yeah, what they might have gone through, or what they might be wanting to experience from the other side.
Well, what they always tell me too, though, they say that it was exactly their time to go. And in fact, I had a friend who transitioned. It was almost a year ago. She was only 59 and died in this car wreck. It was just a weird, all of a sudden thing. It wasn't like she was guilty or anybody's guilty. It's just like it happened. And so when I did communicate with her, it took several months. When she did come through, she said, Karen, you need to know there were no accidents. It was absolutely perfectly planned that I was to leave when I did. There are no accidents. She keeps reminding me that there are no accidents. That means anything in life, not just the accident in the car, but things that happen to us. There's no accidents. Everything's purposely aligned to help us evolve. And the same when they transition, they're still evolving as well.
It's so true. I mean, I firmly agree with what you're sharing right now, because I believe that everything is a stepping stone for growth. Everybody has a different way of saying it, but it's all about growth. And if you get through this, it's for growth. And I also believe in the sacred contracts. I don't know if you believe in those
Yeah,
as well.
I do.
So now somebody has shared with me, they believe that you have like 5 opportunities to leave this planet, and you can choose when you leave. Are you under the same belief?
Well, I've heard that before, and I've talked to some transition people about this. Sure, there's always opportunities and times when you can choose to leave, but it's like you're not necessarily consciously aware of it, you guys. That's something we got to think about. It's more on a higher level, like your higher self level, that says this could be an opportunity for me to leave, but no, I'm going to stay because now this has shifted and changed. I still believe in free will, and I still believe that anything that even if you go to a psychic and you're told this is going to happen, the thing is you can change it in a moment because some trajectory of a thought you had that takes you in another path. So that can happen. So yeah, I do believe in the sacred contracts. I do believe that we can exit at different times, but I also think that's more on a higher level consciousness of ourselves. We're not always so aware of it.
Yeah. And I think that when my belief is that when we have an accident, you've said you knew you were going to have it, and so you agreed to this.
Yes.
You
Yes.
agreed to this accident. If someone murders you, you made a sacred contract and agreement with the person who does this to you.
That's a hard thing for people to hear. Now, I know that's very hard. People are watching this right now. That's hard to hear because you go, I didn't set myself up to be, attacked or to be in this accident. The truth is your higher self on some level, you did agree. And it's like, you know what we are? We're each other's like actors in each other's plays. We're all actors on the stage and we agree to these things. And and to say we understand why we agree to them, we really can't unless you yourself go back and maybe in past life regression work and figure some of those things out. If I was to judge somebody for that, that would not be right because I don't walk in this person's shoes. So it's like, it's not a judgment call. We have to be really careful about that when we say, that like my friend who died in the car wreck, she says, it was nobody's fault. It was what was supposed to happen. And so I have to honor her in that. And that's where she is now. Now, maybe if she survived that accident and then was like, dismembered or, maybe a paraplegic or something, there might be different feelings about that. But once you go back to spirit, you go, oh man, you see the bigger picture. You're like, right. Yeah, I came here and did exactly what I was supposed to do with the people I was supposed to do with, and the hardships and trials and tribulations I went through and the great things I went through, that was perfectly orchestrated. So I can see why now, so my soul can evolve and grow.
I agree. I so agree. So I'll tell you an interesting story. When I was 18, I had my palm read, and the woman, gave me this whole palm reading thing. And they said, when you're in your 50s, you will be in a car accident and you will be, really injured. You'll survive, but you'll be injured. Wow. And when I was in my 50s, I was driving from Memphis to Chicago, and I'm rear-ended. And the girl who hit me, her head was not above the steering wheel as she's coming down on me. But here's where the intervention came through. I was driving a 2-seater. And so she popped up at the last second, put on her brakes. Her car went underneath my car, but I didn't flip. I just was able to stop. And Whoa. Yes, I have back and neck injuries from it, but I had heard that there was a family member a male family member who from the other side who intervened, who made the accident not as bad as it could have been.
Amazing. And that's what happens. You will have your guides and your helpers and your loved ones on the other side that will come in and intervene if it's not the right time for you to leave. They're going to go, wait, not yet. There's something else more for her to do. And you might make that decision yourself if you have a near-death experience. That's an amazing story, Marla. Very cool.
Thank you. So you talk to people on the other side. Do they give you any type of specific kind of messages, or is it across the board?
No, when I was younger, it was more across the board because I didn't know really what I was doing other than I was very positive about using this tool. To me, it was like my lifeline back to Daki, my imaginary playmate who wasn't, and then also to things I could do. And then working with these spirits on the board at a young age, it's like I just kind of fell into it and learned. So I've always been getting all kinds of information. But as I got older, especially it was 1986, where I made a huge transition with this tool, and I do call it a tool or a device because that's really what I use it for. That really took me into new levels of using this board. And when I did that, that's when just the whole world of the unseen dimensions opened up to me. So it became not just communicating with the deceased. I started to communicate with all kinds of different beings that are in different dimensions, such as angelic kingdom or extraterrestrials, extra dimensionals, or higher selves, even my own higher self, as well as ethereal beings who have never been born in a body. The list goes on and on. So what this tool became for me as I began to explore more and more is what I would call my cosmic phone, because I just dial up the frequency and communicate with those beings. Now where I am when I communicate with the deceased, although that's not necessarily who I always talk to. I'm mostly talking to my guides and some of the higher ethereal beings. But when I do talk to the deceased, the transition now, they tell me a lot about the afterlife. And now I know I'm so much more open to the other dimensions that I have better questions to ask now than I did as a kid. So I'm like, okay, so what happens when you die? It's more like, so now where are you? What are you exploring? What's next? You know, tell me about your evolution. And this is why I learned some of the things about how you can project yourself into any age that you want to be on that timeline of what you would have been. Because truly the incarnation that we just experience when we do transition, it's still there. It never continues to fail to be there. It's always going to be there. And so you can still project that out, like almost like a parallel life. So that's why some of my friends that I talk to that are there can say, I can project to be a 99-year-old, although I died at the age of 60. I can be that person I never could be, but I can practice what it would be like now. So it's like, you don't really stop. Because she died at an earlier age, she still can be exploring what it would be like to be in her 70s and her 80s and her 90s. So it's really, so these are the kind of things I'm more exploring now than just to what happens when we die. You know, it's a little more complex than that. And so I'm learning so much. And by the way, I'm writing a book right now about consciousness, communicating with all kinds of consciousness in different realms. And one of the realms I am talking about is the realm of the transitioned, those who have passed over. So I'm getting into a lot of the stuff in my new book.
And I heard a new book is in, I just heard there's a book to be had. So interesting.
Yeah. I'm exploring all kinds of consciousness. See, how I use the tool now is I like to push the boundaries of consciousness. And what can I communicate with? So I can communicate with any being that is sentient, any being that has a sentience and wants like an awareness about themselves and wants to communicate back. This includes like the animals that are alive and also transitioned. You don't have to talk to things with the board or with your mind or with channeling with things that are always dead. You could talk to, and by the way, dead doesn't mean anything. Dead is you're still alive. Even when you think you're dead, you're still alive.
Well, you know how you said we're like we're actors. I always look at the soul. It's like Greek theater. Our soul stays the same, but we put on different costumes depending upon our life. That's how I look at it.
So that's what I'm saying. So you never die. It's life after life after life after life. You just transition into the next, to the next, to the next. And therefore you can also have parallel universes, parallel realities. You could be living two lives. Here's something interesting. So the group of beings I mostly communicate with through the board and now also direct channeling, voice channeling, and I hear them and I do automatic writing with them. They've talked about sometimes when a soul comes in and a soul wants to have multiple experiences at the same time, often it will choose to be a identical twin or triplet or quadruplet or way out. It wants to experience itself in the same body, similar, abilities, yet it wants to have different ways of experiencing the world. So that's one of the more recent messages that came through the last 5 years. I'm just working on all this stuff. Like, what are the possibilities for life here and life afterwards?
That is so fascinating because, you never think about, twins, their soul. Are they split souls or are they two separate souls? And what you're sort of saying is not all, but they could all be split souls.
That's right. Especially the identical ones, the ones that are identical that come with this, that look exactly the same. Not so much fraternal, but the identical ones. Think about it now. It is a cell that split. It's a cell that split and became split again to its two separate zygotes. It did its own thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's interesting. Where you have fraternal, it's definitely two different eggs. See?
That's so true. Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back to talk about more with Karen A. Dahlman. And if you want to call in, please feel free to call 888-346-9141 to ask Karen a question. Stay tuned.
All right, great job. We're all clear. Back in about 2.
Thank you. That was wonderful. I'm changing our vision so we can both look like we're talking to each other.
Okay,
I didn't want to do it mid-segment. So I get so caught up sometimes, in the conversation I'm having, because we were having some Good
I
meat.
know. And so you have to like monitor the board and all this stuff. It's kind of hard to do it all at the same time. I know when I do my shows, it's hard.
It is, but we do the best we can with what we've got.
That's right.
I've stopped judging me about this. Okay,
You have to laugh, right? You've got to have humor with all this stuff.
well, I've learned that, not life. I used to be so serious. Well, actually, as a kid, I used to love to laugh. And my father said something and it stopped me in my tracks. And I was very, very serious for many decades. And now it's like, can't be bothered with that. It's just too heavy of a vibe. It brings
It's
you
too
down.
hard on herself. It's too rigid, And what the guides tell me, they say, laugh and have fun because that raises your vibration. It's easier for us to connect with you when you're in a higher vibration of joy.
That's it.
So they have great sense of humor too, and they're always making us laugh.
They do. They say some pretty silly
Don't
things.
they?
They do. And I have to say, better late than never. I'm so grateful and I'd love to have that conversation about making room in our heads.
Oh yeah.
When we come back.
Yeah, let's do.
But yeah, I'm so grateful for that now that I've got less in there, so I get more information.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That was a key thing for me to go from the board to direct channeling in my mind. So let's definitely talk about that. That's a transition I've been taking the last 10 years.
And the next thing I really want to ask too is when you have sessions, do you use your Ouija board for your clients, or do you use a combination of channel and Ouija, or you just get into your senses?
Yeah, let's talk about that. That's good. And if you anything else you want to talk about, if you want to talk about, for example, even using the board and Ouija stitions, superstitions, or any of that kind of stuff, we can talk about that too. There's so much to go with this.
There's so much to talk to you about. We need like a 4-hour show just to cover the basics.
Yeah, no, really, with the board you do,
Deep
there's
dive.
so much to talk about with this tool and just all the work that comes because of it, also outside of it. And I do want to talk to people about, that the board is really neutral. I want to talk about that a little bit too.
So I was just writing good versus evil so
Good,
that we can
perfect.
talk about, because some people open portals, they get information from the astral. I'd love to give them instruction on how to get pure information.
Oh yeah, I call that working your way through the dead zone, because it's something, and I talk about this in all my books too, because it's like that's where everybody starts. I mean, I started with what we call the dead zone.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to jump in here, but we are coming back.
Okay. Thanks, Matt.
You are listening to Guided Spirit Conversations. To reach Marla Goldberg or her guest today, you're invited to call into the program at 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. If you'd rather send an email, the address is guidedspiritconversations@gmail.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. If you've just tuned in, I'm here with Karen A. Dahlman. Karen is an author. She's authored 3 books, working on number 4, licensed psychotherapist, channel for Source, and I like to call her a Ouijaologist, but she's a Ouija expert. And we are going to get more into the whole Ouija board experience. And if you're going to use a Ouija board, let's learn how to do it properly. So we, as Karen calls it, we can get through the dead zone.
Yes.
And that's the way she calls it. And we'll go from there. To check out Karen's website, well, we have 3 different websites. So we have creativevisionpublications.com, Karen A. Dahlman, which is DAHLAM.com, or tbhs.org to find out about the Talking Board Historical Society.
Right.
So welcome back, Karen.
Yay, it's great to be back with you. Let's talk a little bit. Let's do a deeper dive into Ouija. How about that?
Okay, let's do a deeper dive into Ouija.
So I think we were talking about, you just mentioned moving through the dead zone. So when everybody starts out with this tool, the easiest realm to reach would be those in the lower astral level, which is like the 4th dimension. So it's those that might be stuck, those that are still, wanting to be part of this world, haven't quite moved on, transitioned, because they're still like maybe attached to personality. They're attached to something that happened, or it could be those also that can come back to visit you. So it's not necessarily always negative, you guys. It can also be where your loved ones have already moved on, but come back and they're easier to reach. So that's where people always start with this tool. It's where I started too. And this is the place where you might get a lot of gibberish. You might get a lot of nefarious, sometimes, or negative stuff, because it's just lower level stuff. Now, I got to say something about the board before I go further into the dead zone.
Okay.
The board is really neutral. It's neither positive nor good. It's just a tool or a device. It's ourselves that become the amplifier for what you get. So for example, if I'm harboring fears and worries and concerns, and then I'm using this tool, I'm going to magnify that and draw that to me. Again, it's not the board, you guys. People say, I got to burn my board. No, it's you. You might have to exercise yourself. You might have to look at what you're doing within yourself, what you're harboring. So a lot of times we will hold, fears is the big thing. Oh, they want to do a Ouija board, but they're like, I was told it was the demon's going to come through. Well, guess what? You're going to start drawing that to you. It's just, again, it magnifies what it is you harbor within. I always say, check your inner feelings, how you feel about the day. If it was a bad day, you're feeling angry, don't use the board. But if you're more in a positive, curious, excited state where you go, I want to explore, then use this tool. That's where you start, okay? And that way you're going to draw different kinds of energies to you.
I have a quick question.
Sure, bring it in, Marla.
I had a client and whose son is an All-American athlete. This is when he was in high school. And he couldn't sleep. And yet when I did a clearing on him and I heard Ouija board, and the father said, yeah, don't you remember when he was 7 years old, a friend brought a Ouija board over. Okay. Well, when I had ended up doing space clearing and cleared their house, and his room was the room that had the primary disturbance in it. And when I went to clear it, the energy only flowed to the edge of his bed. And then it was blocked from his bed to the window, which was probably a good 5 feet. But however wide the room is. And what was interesting is that I had gotten that he had opened up a portal, and for whatever reason, and he wasn't able to really sleep for 7 years being this athlete. So the one I want to say is, how do people, what do they do that pops open portals and has all this gook come up, and how can they avoid popping? I know we were talking about mental attitude, where you're at, lack of fear. But is there any other way to make sure you stay secure and successful in a positive way when you work with Ouija?
Well, it's not just Ouija. Okay, so but in this case, you're saying there's a Ouija board involved. Okay, so the Ouija doesn't do it. It's not the Ouija. It's the people that are involved with the tool. So I would say that boy or the boy or his friend that came over, they have their own connections already to the realms. They're probably very sensitive, like I was, where I could open up things as well. And being a child, not knowing what you're doing, I didn't know either. I'm very fortunate that I didn't fall into what she's talking about with this boy. So that's what's happening. Is that we got to not take the power out of the person. The person is really the empowered thing here. It's not the tool. It's not this thing back here. It's ourselves. So I would say those kids had their own abilities. The board became their permission slip, their reason, their excuse to open it up. And yes, we could sit there in a room, just a candle by ourselves with the lights on, and open up something and bring in energies. It's all upon our attentions. So this is why I say when little kids want to use this tool, and listen, I used it at the age of 8. Okay. I'm not opposed to children using it, but what I'm for is parents having a conversation with their child before they go get him a board. And that can help with some of these things, like with this client of yours, Marla. If the parents maybe sat down before he used the board, or talked to him after he used the board, there might have been something they could have done to intervene with him, to help him become more empowered, or the boy that came over to say, you know what, maybe it's a matter of you going to your parents and let them know what's going on. And maybe you need to speak to a local practitioner, or maybe you need to learn to close it down yourself, that you are a sensitive being, and it's okay if things are happening, but here's a way to close it. Here's a way to sleep at night, set the boundary around your bed. There's all these things I learned along the way as an adult. But if we just have conversations with the children who want to use this tool first, and you'll be surprised. I think a lot of the kids will say, I just want to know what happens when grandma died. Or what happened to my dog when my dog died? It's things like that. Or I'm just curious because I watch these movies, or I see YouTube on TV, and there's people using boards and bringing demons. Is that real? Sometimes I just want to explore. If you can sit down and have a conversation and do it with them, listen, they're going to go sneak and use this tool. like their son did. You know, a little boy brought it over. That's going to happen.
Right.
You really got to be prepared for that. And I think now where people are, especially with all the shows on TV now about the paranormal, the ghost shows, it's more open now to have conversations because everybody's watching these shows. So it's more common to say,
Right.
hey, we watched that ghost show. Well, look, that's not really real. That's Hollywood, or this is entertainment. But if you want to do this stuff, this is what you need to think about. It's educating. And I don't think we've done that enough because we were afraid to, especially when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s. You didn't do that. And that child, I don't know what year he was growing up, probably I'm going to guess 80s or 90s because of which board that came out, and people want to use the board. So you've got to kind of combat that, with as an adult with a child and have these conversations. But yeah, things happen. And it's not just because of the board though. It's because of the operator. Now, one of the interesting things, people go, well, when I use this board, it's like I become more psychic. Well, the truth is you're using the board as your excuse or almost as your talisman to remind you of your own psychic abilities. We are all have these abilities of the clairsenses, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, and so forth. We all have the ability to communicate with those who have transitioned. They might come to us in our dreams. We might get memories or thoughts or smells or something. They'll come to us. We all have all these abilities. But when we sit down with a tool, and it could be tarot cards, it could be the I Ching, it could be ruins, it could be a pendulum.
It could be a pendulum. Yeah, I was gonna say.
They're right. They awaken this stuff within us. It's not the tools, it's ourselves. So I always say, people, take back your empowerment. It's not the board. But the board, when you use the board, you are going to be working with other dimensions. So be prepared what you're getting into. And so I always say, whatever you do before you do like a pendulum or tarot cards, you might do a prayer, you might breathe, bring in white light, breathe, some kind of breathing exercise. I always do that. Center yourself, ground yourself, then start with this work. That's when you get the better results. And I know that doesn't come in a box. The boxes that these boards come in don't talk about all this.
Right.
I do have an angel board here. A psychologist had developed, and she actually has a little pamphlet that comes with it. And the board looks like this. It's an angel board. It's really kind of cool.
Oh, I love that. That's so pretty.
Archangel board. This is a planchette's little angel. It's adorable. I love it. She gave that to me. And she's also, like I said, she's a psychologist. That you just gotta do what you normally would do in any other ritual you do. Bring that into this, and then make it a sacred space and start your session. And then you're going to get better results each and every time, because again, it's what you're putting into it, your intentions, what you're opening yourself up to, what you want to accomplish. You're protecting, surrounding yourself with light. You're feeling good within yourself, centered. Then do any of this work, whether it's tarot cards, oracles, I Ching, all the stuff we're talking about today, Ouija boards.
And the other thing, which we spoke about off air, but is about to really be able to receive messages, you have to clear your mind. You have to clear the clutter out of your mind, because I know for me, my mind, I lived in my head. If you're living in your head, you're not going to have room to get information.
So true. We were talking about this earlier before we came on the show. We wanted to share this with you guys. One of the things that happened for me, so I've used the board for 47 years, but about 10 years ago, I started working more off the board. Although I use the board still. I just did the board session yesterday with my one of my board partners. But I started working off the board. In order to do that, I had to learn to discern the messages I was receiving, which come through my heart or in my head. So it's kind of a combination. I feel them here, and then I can hear them and sense them here. And when I'm thinking too much, like Marla just said, you got all this stuff in your head going around, monkey mind, blah, 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 just chatter. There's no space. And so you have to learn to space it. I step aside mentally. Meditation is great for this. There's a lot of techniques I use. I step aside, get from one brain side to the other, and then that's when I can allow them to come through. And then I can begin to discern what's really my inner chatter versus when I hear them, what they're saying. And I say them because I'm communicating with a group of collectives called the guides. I just simply call them the guides. And they're the ones that come through all the time, constantly.
It's so true. And the other thing too is, I just had it in my head and it went away.
It'll come back. It will
come back. But it is truly about, letting, not to judge. Don't judge what you get. Do not judge.
It's so easy when you do this work. And let's just take back into the Ouija board. When you're sitting down with the Ouija board, let's say you're going to use it by yourself, which you can. So you're using it by yourself. You're sitting there and you're waiting for this planchette to move, and you're like, then it starts to move a little bit. And you're like, no, that's me. Oh no, no. Yeah, you get stuck. You have to kind of just feel, when you feel it, go with it. Don't judge. Maybe it is your subconscious mind pushing it. Just let it go, feel it flow, and then start writing the messages that come. It might be gibberish, it might be a letter. Just, that's what you have to do. You have to get out of your own way. Same with direct voice channeling. This is just one form of channeling. Another channeling, well, it might be automatic writing. It might be verbally talking. And to do that, you have to get out of your way, meaning you have to, again, clear the clutter. You have to not judge when you hear these messages. So like when I do readings for people, when I might use cards, I might use my, intuition. When I get readings, I can't go, I hear a word or a phrase, say it. I'm like, no, say it, no. And you can't do that, because it's like, who am I to judge what that person's supposed to hear? So whatever I hear or get or see, I just say it. And the next thing they're saying, yeah, oh, that makes sense. Oh, and it has nothing to do with me. I'm just the vessel that allows it to come forth. That's why I can't hold it. I can't stop it and judge it. And the same when I do the board. And when I do the board, it works really fast. I get messages that go on for pages and pages and pages from the guides. When I voice channel, it comes in really clear. When I automatic write, the same thing happens, because I'm getting out of the way and not judging what's coming through. I have to let it flow.
Does your voice change when you channel, or does it sound
Not
the same?
so much. People say they see that sometimes my facial expressions, or maybe the way I say words might change, or the way I pronounce words might happen. I don't see much of a change myself, but then I step out. People say it just sounds like you're more strong in or passionate about what you're saying. And I find it funny. So I will record it sometimes. And a lot of times when I do channel, I'm just like, I step aside and because I'm not judging it, it just comes out. And I'm not filtering it. So I don't know. I don't remember the gist of what I said. Like when you and I are talking right now, I'll remember almost everything we said, right?
Right.
There I won't. But yes, there's subtle nuances. For me, I don't see that major change in my voice like some people have.
Yeah, I had a friend who, his Adam's apple would just expand, or the neck would just get larger, and then his voice would change ever slightly, and he spoke more robotically.
Yes.
Fluidly.
Yes. I'll tell you, that's funny. I was doing a channel session. It was on a show. This was this was during the whole COVID-19 lockdown. So it was like more recently, this spring, and they were saying something, and my Karen, myself here, my consciousness came more in the forefront, and it was the weirdest thing. They were talking, and they started going into slow warp speed. They were going la 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 la, and I was like, what? Because they said, well, Karen's coming in. It was weird. I was like, never heard this, and it's on recording. So like, wow. But my consciousness came back in, and I was like, oh, I wanted to say something, and when I did that, coming in, they kind of recede, they don't, I want people to be clear about this. When you channel, it's not like their energies are in my body. What it is their thoughts come through, and I allow them to use my thoughts to speak. Some people do transmediumship. That's not what I do. And I don't know if that's what your friend does, Marla, but that's when they do let the energies come through. Mine's just more the voice, the sound, the feeling, and the words, and then it comes through. But when my presence came back really strong, they're going to immediately leave, because it's really me that's supposed to be in this body or using all my apparatus. And so for me, it's a permission I give them to give their thoughts to me. And I say here, because I can hear them literally sometimes outside of my head. It's back here. And sometimes I hear them more in my head. It's when they're coming in, I can hear them come. Boom.
Did they say anything about COVID?
They have said some things. They have said some things, and I posted it on my website. And I have not done a video about it, but just the gist of it is that they said there's a lot of things this is what they called it. They said there's a lot of things hidden beneath the blanket of this virus, of the corona. They call it the coronavirus. There's many things hidden beneath the blanket of the coronavirus. Beyond just the virus of the body, you will see a lot of the stuff start coming up for humanity to look at more clearly. They said before this year started, before we even knew about this coronavirus, they were talking about a big shift coming for us, and a change that was going to make us really awaken to our personal empowerment. And to do that, we had to go through a lot of strife, a lot of hardship internally within ourselves. We've all have a lot of our own conflict going on. It's a mirror of what's going on in the world now. Now we're seeing it out here, but we've all been going through some really hard years. People have written to me, told me about this, and the guides have been talking about this. They said it's not, that's a bad thing. It's actually a very positive thing to awaken to what you really are about, what humanity really is capable of. And to do that, you got to look at what the distortions in humanity and the distortions within your world. And once you can look at those and face them, that's when everything can shift for us in a better level. And we can move to a higher vibration, which means we begin to awaken to these abilities we're talking about today. We begin to realize that we are sovereign beings, that we are all spiritual beings, and that every single one of us is important. We're all interconnected, and that we do one thing bad to this person over here, we're really hurting ourselves. And so this concept of what humanity is awakening up to, that we really are one, and that you really are a being that will live on forever, and you never can be killed or die, that you just transition and continue on. But this will become more open, so then you'll have more abilities to reach in and maybe communicate with your loved one that just transitioned or something like of that nature. It's really this is really a good time, you guys, as hard as it is for all of us. And I know I'm struggling. I know a lot of people, businesses, all kinds of things are happening. And I want to just say, have hope through this time. And two of the most important things that guys have talked about during this time: never give up your individuality. It's great to work with groups of people, but never give up who you are, and always remain true to your creativity. These are gifts that Source Wisdom provides us: the gift of individuality and the gift of creativity. And with that, you can do so much in the world. And so if you do become part of a group, don't ever let them say, you can't be this, you must be what we are only. Never, never, ever release that part of you that is unique, because every single expression of our soul that comes forth, that we come forth from the spark of divine, of the divinity. We all are source, you guys, incarnate. We cannot allow that to ever be pummeled, pushed down, held back, told it's not good. So those are the big messages, Marla, the guides have. They've been preparing these messages for my audience for, I would say, the last 3, 4, 5 years, even before the current administration got into office. They've been talking about this.
I'm going to put us on pause. We have to go to break. We'll be right back. We're going to finish more of this conversation. We come back. If you want to talk to Karen, 888-346-9141. Look forward to seeing you on the other side.
Okay, great job. We're all clear. Back at about 2.
Thanks. That was great information.
Yeah, it's so powerful and positive what they have to say about this time, because it's tough. We're all asking, and I have clients that come and want to know what's going on. And the bottom line is, it's just time for us to wake up. And to do that, you cannot go to a higher level of being as a species. We have to bring everybody up with us. Everybody's got to come at the same time, or I need them to bring me up. We all got to go together. And so to do that, we have to see what is not working. And so that's why everything's being exposed in institutions, in the political arena, in the world format. This is why we're all under this lockdown. We all have to come back in. Who are we really? Reawaken to this and reassess things to reawaken and make changes. And that's what's happening. It's not easy. It's not an easy time.
It's not an easy time. It's very hard. And for the people who have lost their jobs, or their jobs are on hold and they don't know what to do, they don't know where they're going, it's frightening for them, because they don't know how they're going to pay bills. How they, if they get sick, how are they going to pay for their medical care?
Exactly. And people lost loved ones. I mean, it's just sad. It's just a horrible situation we're in. But yet, we got to look at it though. Everything's meant for a purpose and a reason, and there are no accidents. So we have to. It's hard. I know. I have my hard days too at this, but we kind of have to go. What can I do now? What can I shift in myself? What do I need to do to move forward?
Right. And we're humans. We're all humans. By the way, we did get a message.
Great.
Great advice for advising parents to be involved before kids use this board.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's me as a therapist coming through and telling you that, because, I didn't have that. But then again, I didn't have my parents saying, oh, this is bad, this is evil. And I was also Catholic, and I got my board on Christmas Christmas morning, and I went to church right then too, the same day. It was like, to me, it was not a weird situation. It was like they went together to me, because to me, when I would go to church, it was talking about your angels, or was talking about, the survival of Christ and the consciousness and people, following in that path and footstep. And it was all positive. And then I remember people in the Bible speaking to voices in the burning bush. And I thought, you know what? I'm just talking to it through a board. Okay. And to me, it was never forced to me. But I think that was my parents' way of communicating. They didn't have any negative. They just said, oh, you want to do it? Okay, that's fine. I bring it out here. We could see you do it, that kind of thing. It was like,
thank God they were open to it.
So open to it. But
All
yeah,
right.
I got to tell you this, Marla.
Sorry to interrupt, but we are coming back.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Matt. Telling you, this is another show.
Conversations. To reach Marla Goldberg or her guest today, you're invited
Never
to
enough an
call
hour.
into the program at 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. If you'd rather send an email, the address is guidedspiritconversations@gmail.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, I'm here with Karen A. Dahlman. And Karen is not only an author, licensed psychotherapist, channel for source wisdom. Karen is a Ouija expert, a Ouija board expert, so much so that she's the director and officer at Talking Board Historical Society. And I just want to give you her information. If you want to check out Karen and what she does, Karen A. Dahlman, DAHLMAN.com, creativevisionpublications.com, or the Talking Board Historical Society website is tbhs.org. So if you want to learn more about Ouija and all that it's, all its nuances, Karen is the one to talk to. If you want to talk to Karen, 888-346-9141. Welcome back, Karen.
Thanks. It's great being here. We're having a great conversation. It's going by way too fast. There's so much to cover.
So much to cover, but it's charity shout out time. So let's talk about your charity, which is bestfriends.org, which I love.
I know, you guys, I support the animals. Best Friends Animal Society, that's them, bestfriends.org. They do a fabulous job of taking care of the animals. This is like part of humanity, you guys. I mean, they're different species, but they are a mammal with us, our friends, our furry friends, and they need all the help they can get. They're just not treated the way they should be treated. And so please, whatever you can do to share with bestfriends.org, any money you can donate for them or any other kind of donation, please reach out to them. They're great.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I'm in the market for a puppy myself. So
oh, good.
I want a little one, but
there's a lot out there that need to be rescued for sure.
There are. And my Tug, who is 110 pounds sweetie pie, he's a Rot Coonhound mix. He is just an angel. He's my guy. Other than my husband, of course.
Okay, right.
Can't forget Gary. So we were talking earlier, Ouija versus psychic abilities. We were talking, I'd asked you, when you do sessions, do you rely on the Ouija? Do you just rely on psychic abilities now? Or do you use both? How do you, when you work with a client, I know everything is individual, like a fingerprint.
Right.
But how do you know which tool to use with your clients?
Well, I have clients that come to me just to communicate with their guides, and they want me to use the Ouija board. It's part of the process, and my guides will come through, or their guides will come through, or I'll get a message from spirit from somebody they want to reach out to, or if the spirit can't come through, then usually my angel will come through. Her name's Mary. I've been working with her since 1989, and she'll come through and she will help bring the messages forward. So it just depends. And then when I do readings, I'm also on a psychic line, and I do readings there. And when I do them, I typically, it's more intuitive. I get the words, like I was talking about earlier, clear my mind. I get in that space. I may use cards periodically, but mostly it's what I hear, and I just go with it, and I'm mostly channeling. A lot of times I'll say, hey, I've got a message from you. They want me to bring them through right now. And I'll step aside and let their guide come through, or my guide will interpret what they're saying. So it really just depends. And then when I'm doing traditional therapy, that's what it is, but I'm also experienced and licensed in hypnosis. So, and I'm not doing that so much now, but I use it a lot of myself. But when I was using hypnosis in practice, I was doing a lot of past life work. Actually, it was regression work. The clients would go back to past life. And so the Ouija board wasn't involved, channeling wasn't involved. It was all hypnosis and past life recall, or future life recall, or in between life recall. A lot of that. And that was just to help the people heal with any issues they came to my sessions for, such as depression. We would follow that residue of that depression back to where it started. And it might have started earlier in this life, and then it might have gone even back further into other lives or other incarnations. So really, it's just a matter of what people want, and also what I feel like I need to use with the client. It really changes.
I think the more tools you have in a toolbox, the more it helps get the client whatever it is that they might need.
That's right. Because not everybody's going to resonate with a board, and not everybody's going to resonate with channeling. And some people might just resonate with just hypnosis, or just with verbal talking. So one of the things I do, which my guides have told me about, I've been doing for years, and When I was first starting out as a practicing therapist, I went into private practice. I was like the age of 27 when I went to my own private practice. One of the things that I would do, I was trained, had all my hours and my licenses and all this stuff, but it was to jump in at that young age. I was like, who do I think I am? The thing was this, I was already channeling, and what the guides called it, they call it vocal we, or we speak, W-E-E. So it's we with them, and the extra E is me, like we, me. So it was we, W-E-E, speak. That's the name they gave it, or vocal we, W-E-E.
Oh.
That meant we were working together. So you would not know I was channeling. And I was like, where did that idea come from? Where did this, I just said, go with it. So I was learning early on to separate and allow the flow to come. And I thought, oh, it's just intuition. I don't know where, it's just, and then when you're usually new at being a therapist, you also have to have a psychiatrist or a doctor that you go to that helps you look at your clients you're working with, and to kind of help you stay on track, make sure you're not doing projections and all kinds of weird, transference issues and things. So I was still doing that, but it was like all these ideas were coming through. It was very solid and sound. It was helping the clients. And the guides didn't tell me at that time. They just told me later. They said, yeah, we were doing vocal we were working with you. And those were ideas that would come from your higher self, but we'd help kind of put them there, and then you'd pull them down and use them. They said, that's how people really should work. They should work incorporating their higher selves, should work incorporating all the help that's out there for us. And so that's really what I'm teaching people to do. When people come to my shows and my channels and my workshops and programs I teach, I'm really trying to help people to empower themselves to connect with their higher self, their greater self, source wisdom, and do this work themselves and bring that into their life. So you're not so just two-dimensional. You become more like 5-dimensional, 6-dimensional. You become so much more a multifaceted being, and you begin to express all this for yourself in your life. That's what this is about. This is why I'm very passionate about what I do. It just so happens that this tool can help you get there, as these other tools we're talking about can help you get there too.
Right. And it depends what you're resonating with, where it's
Right.
coming from. We all have the ability. It's just getting out of your way and just allowing things to come through without judgment, without criticism, and know that if it's coming through for a reason.
Yeah. And Marla, you be getting words, you get things too. They come to you, they come like insights, right? Flashes. How would you describe that?
It's different for different situations. Yeah, sometimes I just get information and I share it. Sometimes I see things like I'm starting to see not just spirit on the other side, but actual people spirit in this life. And so like I have a client who is has a son who's non-communicative, and I was doing work with her about it, and he came to me and he wanted me to let her know how loved he felt. Like he looked like a swaddled baby, being cradled, and how grateful he was that she took such care of him. And it was just such a beautiful vision. So for me, I mean, some of these things are new. The visions are relatively new, but I've learned to get out of my way. Don't judge and let it come out, whatever it is, because it's not meant for me. It's meant for whomever.
That's critical. That's a very important piece. So years ago, when I was doing some messages for people through the board, I remember getting a message that was kind of harsh. I was judging it. Okay. And it wasn't for me, but it was for a person that reached out to me as a client that wanted this message. And I was going to give her this message. I was like, oh, I was starting to judge it. And I got right back in there. And I said to the guys, I said, hey, can we shift this message and make it a little bit softer?
Soften it up a little.
They're like, no. Why would you think if this person came to you as a client asking you for advice, this message that we're going to bring forth from her guides, why would you intercede and think that it needed to be shifted and changed? Why would you not trust her and her own vision of wanting to come to you and get this message? I went, duh. And that's when I said, okay, I got to get out of the way. Another level of getting out of the way.
Yes.
Just because something comes through and I think, oh, I would never talk to somebody like that. That is what she needed. She goes, oh my God, you're right.
She needed that smack.
Yeah, I was like, thank goodness I'm glad I didn't tweak it, because the guides, they don't make me do anything. They give me the message and I can do what I want to with it. Since that point, quite a few years ago, I've never once shifted the message. It's verbatim, even with their misspellings. If they have misspelling, sometimes they do, or words that they use that I don't even understand, I have to go look up in the dictionary. I give it to them because it's like, that's the way it's supposed to be. And people always say, yep. I had messages that come through. It's one word. Now was the message for this gentleman. And I said, what? That's all we're going to give you? Because usually it's like paragraphs and pages and it goes on and on. It's beautiful. He says, no, I don't need more. He goes, I wanted to change my career. And he goes, I've been thinking the time is now. And they just validated that for me.
It's now.
I went,
Wow.
okay.
Karen, this has been an amazing show. Thank you so much. I'm going to have you back because there's
We'd love
just so
to.
much more to talk about.
I know we have a
delightful.
lot of similar things we need to get out. But listen, thank you so much for having me, Marla. It's been an absolute joy. And thank you everybody out there who's watching the show now or later. Wish you guys the best.
Thank you. And so if you want to get look up Karen and look at her website and see all she does, Karen A like Apple Dahlman, DAHLMAN.com, creativevisions.publications.com, or if you want to look up I'm going to forget what it is.
Talking Board.
The Talking Board Historical Society. So tbhs.org, and reach out to Karen and she'll give you some great information, guidance, whatever it is you need. She'll be there for you. She also has 3 books: The Spirit of Alchemy, Secret Teachings of the Sacred Reunion, The Spirits of Ouija, 4 Decades of Communication, and Spirit of Creativity, Embodying Your Soul's Passion. And these can all be found where, Karen?
They can be found on my website if you want an autographed copy, or you go to Amazon.com. They're both in Kindle and paperback form.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody at Voice America for putting on the show and always doing such a phenomenal job doing it. So grateful. I want to thank Teresa Scott Reed and Bridget. I know I'm going to mess up your last name, so I'm not saying it. Thank you, because you get me going and you help me. So grateful. And I want to thank you, the listening audiences, for tuning in, whether it's live or after. Check out my YouTube page, because this will be on YouTube. Like it, subscribe to it. My new journal came out yesterday, my Sacred Journal, which is a tool that I put together for my effing long journey to loving myself, a guide to a shorter path. Look it up at the Barnes & Noble or Amazon. And I'm going to ask you before we leave to please, please, please be socially considerate of others. We don't know if you've got the virus, somebody else has the virus, but I'd love for you to be safe, and I'd love for you to keep others safe. So please don't look at it as tyranny. Don't look at it as control. This is just being considerate of your family, your friends, your neighbor, and even those you don't know, but in your soul life, you do know them. So please be considerate. And until the next show next week, I'm sending you love, blessings, and gratitude. Stay well.